Hey everybody, this is Perch. Kind of a listen, just a quick question, but hopefully is an interesting one. This I can't tell if this question is hopeful or cynical, or I can't quite tell. So you'll have to tell me. It says, "Hey Perch, just a quick question: Are the more jaded comic fans of today currently just treading water until the next generation of kids, raised on a healthy diet of manga, action, and storytelling, grow up and get jobs in the industry? Love what you do." Um, Okay, there you go. Is that cynical or is it not? I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. I'm not sure. Anyway, so okay. First off, I mean, let's point this out because comic creators, comic writers, comic artists, etc. They go in waves, but really more to the point, comic writers in this case. There's these arcs where somebody comes in, they get a job, they hire a number of their friends, and then you get this kind of sea change that happens in a comic publisher. And this has happened, God, since the 50s. And so it almost becomes this microcosm of just a generational impact of about 12 years or so. 12 sometimes goes a little longer. I think we're in a longer stretch now where people will come in. They'll, like I said, they'll bring in their friends. Their friends kind of think the way they do. Their friends bring in their friends. And very soon you have an industry that kind of, you know, adapts or shifts based on kind of this generation or this pool of people. It's not always by age. Sometimes it's about kind of more just how people think or how people, tell stories and so on. But this stuff happens. And we had a big change around, I don't know, 2008 to 2010. This was kind of maybe a little earlier. But about that time period, you had a shifting of the guard. You had several big names who were doing comics in Marvel and had kind of brought that company back up on its feet. And then you had kind of between 2000, around 10 to 12, somewhere in there, you had a bunch of people come in who established themselves in jobs and then immediately started to kind of branch out, bring in their friends. And so what you see today, if you're looking at Marvel right now, it's the culmination of about 12 years worth of hiring and in some cases some nepotism and just a lot of moves in order to get us to where we are now. And what do you have to say about that? I mean, the funny thing is, if you get a good, solid group of people in, you can get kind of a good umbrella of writers. I think that you had this time period, where you had a Grant Morrison and a Alan Moore and a Neil Gaiman and a Mark Miller and Mark Wade was in that group as well. You had a group of, and I'm leaving off some people for sure. Warren Ellis was in there. Yeah, anyway, you had this group of people that had a certain style, and in some cases, these people helped kind of spark and kick off the next generation. So Warren Ellis coming in, getting some popularity, getting some momentum, and then starting his forum. And around 2010 or so, you see people from that forum, kind of getting into comics. Ellis either helping hire some or get some people going there, and then but it was a shift of culture and personality. I would say the group that is in now is maybe comes as a result of some of that, but would not be, say, the same kind of storyteller or story writer as a Grant Morrison or a Neil Gaiman or or an Alan Moore, somebody like. I mean, we're crossing multiple generations now. You had your Frank Miller, Alan Moore. Yeah, you had lots of different groups. The point here is that we are kind of nearing the end. So the question mark is, who is this current era's Warren Ellis, for lack of a better word? By the way, I'm not pinning everything on him. There were lots and lots of people during this time period, but well, Bendis would be another one. Bendis came up toward the end of that 2000 to 2010 kind of range. And Bendis also got lots of people into comics. He brought tons of friends, tons of allies, tons of people he knew that arrived, and so did Ellis. Those two contributed a ton to the current state of where comics are. So the pardon me, the current state of where comics are is drawing to a conclusion, and the next generation is coming in. So my question mark is, who of today's writers are going to be the Bendis and Ellis now? Who's going to kind of, bring in a new group of people in order to kind of kickstart things off? Now, if you're saying the same kind of approach, the same model is going to work, then the person who's probably going to come in is going to need to be, I don't know, this person is relatively new to this era, so really only got popular the last 4 years or so, and they're a rising star, and they're looking to kind of solidify that star. They're looking to hold on to their power base, and so they bring in new people in order to kind of lock in their strength on the industry. So who is that? Donnie Cates. Is it Donnie Cates? It doesn't feel like it's going to be Donnie Cates, and I say that from the standpoint of Donnie. He doesn't seem as networked in. I mean, maybe he is. What gets him to that next level is bringing in a bunch of people and kind of growing his network. That maybe that's the next kind of jump or evolution in his career. But I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Donnie in that position. Again, could happen, but doesn't feel like it's going to be him. So who is it? Who is the next, basically creator or creators that are going to shepherd in this new industry? So to your question, are we just waiting around for kids to grow up who are super into manga? Well, that's not going to be this next era. That's going to be the one after that. So the next era is pretty much it's now. It's we're a little bit overdue just by history, and so we're looking at the next 10 to 12 years coming and having some new voices tell some stories and gain some new power. And then I do think you hit that manga generation. I think around 2034, we all live that long, I think you're going to see comics come out that really try and tap into that. Now, some will do it sooner, and so this isn't a hard and a fast kind of rule of years. But if you just look at history, if you look at the comic business, that tends to be how all this stuff works. And so what you typically will see is around 2028 or so, you're going to see a couple US creators really figure out how to capture that kind of manga storytelling style, start to get big in Western comics. This is also assuming people even want that manga storytelling style back in 10 years from now. But I think some of the core principles of storytelling will come about. But I mean, some writers are going to have to come in, establish that style, gain some big popularity for it, and then I think start to, like it's happened in the past, start to hire friends and slowly kind of grow out, and then we get that flip of the industry. It's hard to imagine. Another thing that actually suggests that might be the way it plays out is, let's assume that the MCU has another 5 to 6 years left in it. So here's some scenarios where the things might accelerate or not. The MCU has the Fantastic Four, and it has X-Men from Fox, and both properties are expected or hoped to be billion-dollar, kind of grow up and do the same level of strength in the movies that the Avengers did. But if they don't, if it shows sign of weakness, if it doesn't kind of capture people's imaginations quickly, then it's more likely that Marvel, or Disney rather, will bail on it faster. They're not going to have the same patience to let it play out for 10, 15 years if it looks like it's not going anywhere. And there's a good chance it won't, because people are a little tired of the same trick. They've seen those movies, they enjoyed those movies, but they are kind of looking for something new. The problem right now in movies is nobody has come around with whatever that new thing is, but let's assume somebody does over the next 5 years or so. So I think if you do see this kind of not change in the MCU, but exhaustion really set in with viewers and things really start to change with the numbers, then one way that will translate to the comics is to say, hey, maybe you don't need to be as tethered to the movies because it's not as important. Maybe the storytelling of humor and quips kind of in the middle of action, all that stuff, maybe that's not necessary anymore. And you get a writer come in, similar to how Donnie Cates did do it, where Cates was able to come in and say, I'm going to give you kind of something that feels a little bit like kind of that 80s, 90s action. You're going to get, kind of big, huge moments and all the rest. And, maybe it can all, maybe you'll be interested in something that kind of reminds you a little bit of the past, but also has some big action in the future. And that's, I think Cates was able to really capture that and use it to kind of further his career. So, maybe this is how things change. I don't think we're going to be just forever waiting for kids who like manga to grow up. But there's definitely a moment in time, no pun intended, where you're going to see this conversion over. And probably it's as I said, it's about I think we're overdue, and so I'm actually very curious. Who do you all think is the Bendis and Ellis, for better or for worse, right now in comics? Who's got the interest and the pull to actually go out there, to put some comics out, to get their friends in, to actually start to build a little life raft away from the old era? Who's got it? It's like I said, Donny Cates is a name that springs to mind. Although I don't think it doesn't feel like it's going to be him, just based on kind of personality and other things. So who is it? Who is that person who kind of shapes the next 10 years of the industry? Curious what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.